Welcome to today's webinar, which is all about building out an intelligent workplace of the future powered by Microsoft AI. So today what we're going to be talking about is essentially we're going to start off with a bit of introductions to myself and Hugh and let you know who we are if you've not met us before. Then we're going to be talking a bit about what is the intelligent workplace, so what actually is an AI-driven intelligent workplace. This will include key pillars to consider and the journey that it will take to get you there. We'll also be discussing some challenges along the way, and also I'm going to show you how you can build your very first chatbot agent using SharePoint. Then we're going to talk a bit about how you can get started, and of course there's going to be plenty of live demonstrations throughout today's webinar. So first I'm going to let Hugh just give a bit of an introduction to himself.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Hugh Valentine, the CEO and founder here at Valto. As you can see, I'm into Liverpool Football Club, so I go to pretty much every game. I've got a 2-year-old son called Ewan, and I'm really into fitness activities like hiking, and later on this year a lot of people from Valto are doing Amsterdam Marathon in October. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can see my URL there, or you can scan the QR code. I'll hand over to Dougie now.
Dougie Wood, and I'm the Creative Director here at Valto. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, which is basically an award that I've been given from Microsoft for all the kind of activities I do, sharing my knowledge on the latest technology that comes out from Microsoft. As you can see from my pictures, I'm very much into skiing, fishing, and paddleboarding. So if you're into those types of things, or if you want to have a little chat about anything Microsoft, connect with me on LinkedIn and we can have a little chat. So we're going to kick things off first, where Hugh is going to talk to us a little bit about the pillars of what an intelligent workplace is.
So I just wanted to jump into what we're coining the pillars of the intelligent workplace. We see this breaking down into 3 key areas: knowledge and comms, process and productivity, and data and decisions. So you can see here the pillars of the intelligent workplace. We have SharePoint, Viva, Teams, Microsoft 365 Copilot living in the knowledge and comms. We have process and productivity, which includes Power Platform, AI Builder, and Copilot Studio. And we have data and decisions, which includes Fabric, Power BI, Synapse AI. So just a quick intro to some of those tools. So SharePoint, which we've demoed many times before, is a knowledge hub. It allows us to build an intranet out for an organization, but typically this can include things like controlled documents, where we can include policies, all our ISO-related documents, procedures. We can also build out a knowledge base, which can be used for storing all of the company-wide knowledge. Dougie's going to demonstrate a SharePoint agent later on and how we can use these in real life that can start to look at this data and be used within your organization. We also talked about Power Platform. So you can see here we have an example of a model-driven app, which allows us to collect data, whether it's project information, and then we can jump in and see all the project type information. And finally, a quick example of a Power BI report, which can be used to present that data. Copilot's also available for all of these products now, which allows us to ask questions of the data and really interrogate what's going on. So flicking back to the presentation, as I mentioned, SharePoint's a knowledge storage area. We have Viva, which can be used for employee engagement. We have Microsoft Teams, which would replace your internal comms. So perhaps instead of internal emails, we can start to move to a communication-focused Teams environment. We have Microsoft 365 Copilot, which can be used to ask questions of all your Microsoft 365 data. Over in Power Platform, we're able to build applications, either Canvas apps or model-driven apps that can replace Excel spreadsheets and collect data from different environments. We have AI Builder and Copilot Studio, which I'm going to demonstrate an example of this at the moment that lets us build agents that automate processes. And then finally, we have Fabric, which is a data warehousing software as a service type tool. It allows you to connect to all your different data sources, join those relationships together, and then using AI, it can start to identify patterns and help you automatically create Power BI reports. That's a quick intro to the pillars of the intelligent workplace. So as part of Valto's AI strategy, I wanted to cover off some of the AI tools that we've implemented as part of our building the intelligent workplace of the future using Microsoft AI. So we'll cover off some of our pre-sales areas where we've helped build some tools especially around preparing for meetings. And then a huge time saver that saved hundreds of hours across our consultancy and developers is a new AI agent that helps the pre-sales team get estimates accurate for their projects. So it will look in our knowledge bases and basically start to identify projects that we've completed previously using actual hours, and it'll help put together a proposal for that salesperson automatically with some ranges of how much that project's typically going to take. So historically, before that process, we had to get our consultants and developers spending a lot of time for every single project, writing out what that project's going to look like and how many hours it's going to take. Now we've moved to this new model. It basically has been completely automated. So we no longer have to use any developers or consultants. We're creating proposals using all of our historical projects, which are stored in Dynamics 365 project operations, and it's saved us hundreds of hours. So as an example of how we're using this, we have at Halo, which is our internal service management system and CRM. And you can see here we've got an opportunity for a housing association. And as we jump into that, we've created well, you can see the opportunity that comes through, and we've created a new AI op button at the very top. So when we click on this, we can see the internal description of what that particular client's looking for. So looking to digitize our internal process for managing maintenance systems. We've classified the lead interest, the business unit, and the company name. So when we hit AI op and hit save, basically what this will do is it will automatically go ahead and create a thread over in Microsoft Teams, and our sales team can then start to ask it different questions of what we need. So we've created this pre-sales agent. So if you scroll right down to the bottom and I tag the pre-sales agent just in here, you can see I've got two options. I've got the create agenda. So before that meeting, what we're able to do is we're able to help that salesperson prep as much as they can to get ready for the meeting. So when I hit create agenda and I drop that in and push send, what will happen is in a couple of minutes, the AI agent will grab that data and it will come back with a proposed meeting agenda. The second one, which I'll demonstrate, is more about creating the proposal. So just while we wait for this agenda to come through, here we go. You can see now it's basically come back with a proposed meeting agenda. So this is taking Valto's process that we like to follow for making sure we capture all that information, like stakeholders and users. But it's also bespoking some of the questions that pre-sales consultant should ask around that. So additional questions that they should think about: technical landscape, integration, and data. So it means that they can go into that meeting fully prepared and capture everything that we need. Of course, when they have that meeting, the next step is then usually we create a fixed price budget proposal document. So again, I can tag the agent. You can see I have an option here for create proposal. I can then drop in the information. So usually we'd have a lot more information for this, but in my demo, I'm just quickly showing some of this. When that goes away now, the next step will basically ask if I've got any additional information. So is there any supporting files? I can choose yes, and that will basically then give me a SharePoint location where I can upload those files. And you can see it's now asking me to do that. So I can go through that process and I can hit OK. And ultimately then the next and final step then is it goes ahead and it automatically creates that proposal document. So you can see on this document, it's brought through the name of the customer, it's brought through the title, it brings through some of our standard template stuff, it brings automatically what the solution is going to look like. So this will be a Canvas app, the technologies that will be used. As we scroll down, it's got our example project cost. It automatically identifies how long the project's likely to take. And then it comes back with these packages. So based on previous projects that we've completed, it comes back with estimated ranges for delivering an MVP, standard, and premium project. And finally, it'll also include things like what's going to be included in the low-level design, the licensing. So this process has saved our pre-sales team a huge amount of time, not only time of effort that the consultants and the developers were taking to create those proposals and find the estimates for the projects, but also the time in which it takes to get back to our customers with proposals. So now we can typically turn these around within a few hours instead of a couple of days.
Thanks, Hugh. That was really insightful. Now we understand the core pillars that go into making an intelligent workplace. We now need to think about what the journey will be to get us there. Now, everyone's going to be at different stages of this, but there's certainly things to consider at each one of these different stages. So let's jump in and talk about the journey to the intelligent workplace. 3 stages of your AI journey to an intelligent workplace. Now, your business cannot just jump into using AI as of day one. There are basically 4 different categories that we put different businesses in depending on the level of readiness they are for AI. The first stage is what I refer to as the data depression. This is where data is all over the place, it's not properly controlled, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you can start thinking about AI and the intelligent workplace. The second stage is cloud adoption. Now, you don't necessarily need everything to be in the cloud. However, you should have the basics, your documents, things like that inside of Microsoft 365 and Azure to make it much easier for these tools that we're going to be discussing to be able to access your data. The third stage is the process automation. So this is looking to work smarter rather than harder. I'm going to look at a few different examples of this as well. Then finally, you're at the stage that you're ready for AI. And this is where we refer to this as the intelligent workplace. Once you have got all the foundations in place, you can then weave AI into every fabric of your business. So the first stage is this data depression. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be very familiar with this stage. This is where you are struggling to find where documents live and constantly finding your employees are struggling to find core documents and information like policies, procedures, marketing materials, templates, and things like that. And it's just becoming a struggle and really depressing part of the job is actually trying to find the data and the documents that you need to do your job. Also, data is stored everywhere. So it could be that some of it is already in Microsoft 365. Some of it might be in SharePoint, but or in different teams. It could be that it's on a file server or NAS. It could be that you're using third-party applications. It could just be that you're reliant on documents being sent around in emails and you're trying to find the document from the last email someone sent you. But this basically is a sign that you need some structure in place. You possibly might even have paper-based processes. A lot of the organizations that we deal with still have some level of paper-based processes, whether it's signing a form to show that you've read a policy, whether it's a accident logbook. There's loads of different examples where paper processes are still taking place. And if you're on the journey to have AI help you make better data-driven insights, you need to ensure that you have all of the data digitalized in a place that's easy to access. Messy spreadsheets. It's very common that there are loads of different Excel spreadsheets saved all over the place with loads of data here and there, and the actual data isn't properly structured into databases, properly processed to allow you to get the insights of your business to be easily extracted. Perhaps you've got legacy systems, old, clunky, headache-inducing systems which are old and need to be replaced. And again, maybe the data isn't easily accessible from this, or even the third party won't allow you to extract this data. This could also be very costly third-party applications. A lot of the organizations that we deal with are paying very silly license fees on an annual basis for systems which they could potentially have built themselves inside of Microsoft 365 and Azure to replace the need for those costly third-party applications. So these are all the things which I class as the data depression stage. You might feel like a lot of this currently applies to you, or you might feel that you're further along this journey. The next stage, say for example, if you were to move from being in the data depression phase into a more cloud-first adoption approach, would include the following. So being able to take a cloud-first approach. Now, as I say, it doesn't mean that AI can't be used with on-premise data. However, for some of the quick win elements of AI that we discuss, things like Copilot, it will rely on your documents being put into SharePoint and Teams and OneDrive for it to be easily accessible. As I say, on-premise data can still be made accessible for certain parts of AI, but realistically, you should be thinking about, are you properly using the Microsoft 365 licenses that you currently have, and is everything properly structured? This might mean a migration to the cloud. Now, this could be from on-premise, this could be from third-party areas. We've even helped people move from some of the Google and sort of G Cloud areas into the actual Microsoft 365 to ensure that you can make the full use out of some of the more quick win elements of AI, like Copilot, like SharePoint agents. Also, making sure you've got proper document structures. One of the things we often analyze for our customers is understanding how they currently structure their documents. Now, as I say, AI, basically think of it as almost like a virtual person. So essentially, you want to make sure your document structuring is still in some way accessible so that AI can understand it properly, whether it's with folder structures around projects or clients, customers, or whatever it may be. Having proper structures and knowing where to store certain documents, as in collaborational documents can be in Teams. SharePoint is really good for a kind of knowledge base and storing those kind of documents which fall under this single source of truth. So things like forms, policies, procedures, things that people want to easily be able to access. And then OneDrive is for your own personal document storage space. I say Microsoft Teams is for collaboration, so making sure that you have this properly set up so that your project teams and people can interact and collaborate around the work that they're currently doing. And again, AI can be applied over the top of this once it's properly in place to help facilitate that collaboration. Making sure you have proper security in place. Now, a lot of people view AI as a giant security risk. Now, AI in itself is not the security risk. However, AI will expose very quickly where there are any weaknesses in your security. So let's take, for example, with Copilot. Copilot only has access to what the end user themselves has access to. However, if they have access to something that they maybe didn't realize they had access to because it was buried in a folder structure somewhere. So let's say, for example, if there was everybody's salary was in an Excel spreadsheet and it was stored in a folder in the HR area that nobody's ever gone and looked for, however, technically they have access to. If an employee was to use Copilot and ask, what is the salary of our CEO, potentially that could go and find that in that Excel spreadsheet and surface that information to them. Now, they would never have known to go and look for that themselves inside of HR's folder. However, Copilot doesn't see it like that. It will go and retrieve every bit of information that it possibly can for that user within the confines of what they have access to. So making sure you have security properly in place and your Microsoft 365 environment is security hardened with things like multi-factor authentication, sensitivity labels to make sure that even if documents are downloaded and taken away from Microsoft 365, they're still encrypted, and even things like conditional access policies to maybe restrict access to only the countries that you operate within. Now, there's loads more in that security bracket, but essentially what I'm trying to stress here is that at this stage of the cloud adoption, you want to make sure that everything is properly secure and ready for AI, because, as I say, AI will only accelerate any issues that you might have as part of your security foundations. You want to be thinking about training. Now, training applies technically at all of these different phases, but at this stage, we want to make sure we've got user, champion, and IT based training in place. So end users know how to use these Microsoft 365 products. Champions know how to support the end users with these products. And then we have the IT departments, which are aware of how to administrate all of these different features and settings which are put in place. So that is our cloud adoption level. The next would be process automation. So once you have everything in place and you've adopted the products which come out of the box. So SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, and some of the other cool products which are in Microsoft 365, maybe Planner, To Do, Stream for video storage, all these different products you want to ensure you're fully adopting, getting the full value from your Microsoft 365 licenses. Then we're going to move into process automation. So this is using some of the tools to allow us to build out things like mobile apps to replace some of those paper-based processes that we described earlier. So if you're still operating with pieces of paper floating around the office or the warehouse or whatever type of business that you run, then you want to be looking at potentially using things like Power Apps instead of spreadsheets or pieces of paper to ensure that you're properly collecting information. So let's say, for example, you have a process where someone's filling out pieces of paper and they're forever missing certain boxes of information, which means further down the line in the process, people are getting frustrated, angry, and upset because they don't have the information that they need at that stage and they're having to push back a stage. Power Apps ensures that you have the right user interface to capture the right information at the right time. The next thing is looking at automating processes. So inside of Microsoft 365, we have Power Automate. Now, this allows us to create workflows for things like notifications, reminders, approval processes, or just generally automating something that was taking a lot of time to manually do. So maybe it's generating quotes or proposals and sending these as documents attached in emails to your customers. Whatever it may be, you can use Power Automate to make your working life a lot quicker, easier, and more efficient. We can consider Power Pages. So as part of the Power Platform, we've talked about Power Apps for building mobile applications for our employees. We've talked about Power Automate for creating those automated workflows. And Power Pages essentially is the ability to create websites which people can go to and log in using credentials that you've either provided to them or they could authenticate with things like their Facebook account, Google accounts, all sorts of different ways they could authenticate to your website. And then basically you're then collaborating and integrating that external party into your data. So it could be, for example, you have an application processing portal where somebody logs in, they can submit an application, they can track where their application is up to with different statuses, and you can interact with that application as well. You can update it, give the client or whoever the third party is an update on where their application currently resides. And all that data is stored inside of Microsoft 365, and you can simply access it simply and easily with, for example, your own mobile Canvas or model-driven app. But all that data is stored inside of Microsoft 365. We then have logic apps. So say, for example, for mission critical, business critical automations, essentially this is Power Automate on steroids. So for those things which basically would cost you a lot of money if they stopped running, you have logic apps in place, which is essentially, I say, Power Automate on steroids to make sure that you have that level of resilience built into your automations. We have structured databases with Dataverse. So think of Dataverse a bit like SQL in the cloud. So you can build out your tables, your relationships, and all of this data that you're using as part of this process automation can be safely stored inside of your Power Platform environment. Then with all of that data that we've collected via our mobile apps, we've automated, we've collected maybe externally via Power Pages, and we've structured it inside of our Dataverse, we can then report on it using Power BI. So this is where we can create dashboards of information, graphs, charts, KPIs, all these cool things which make a business run more efficiently and allow us to make more informed business decisions. We can do that using Power BI. Once we have all of that in place, we are then ready to start considering AI layered over the top of it. So we've moved from being in the data depression, we've adopted the cloud, and we've then built in some automations already using the Power Platform. We're then ready to apply AI over the top of all of this. This brings us into the intelligent workplace phase. This is where we can expect to get more AI insights. We can get improved decision making because we can use AI to spot things that we potentially would not have spot ourselves without the use of AI.
The first AI assists the employee. So the first stage of the intelligent workplace. In fact, the intelligent workplace is split out into 3 stages. And the first of that is the AI assists employee. Now, this is where we've got things like Copilot to make it more effective of how our employees are finding documents and creating documents themselves. The second phase is it works alongside the employee. Now, this might be where we have things like Copilot Studio, which comes into play. And this is essentially where we have almost semi-autonomous agents working in the background. So maybe this is interfacing directly with customers and external people, but there's still a level of it's working alongside our employees. Employees still need to come in and action certain things. And I say this is managed by a human employee. And the third stage of the intelligent workplace is to have full autonomy. Now, we do still recommend that you have employees have check-in stages, so whether there's something that needs an approval before it's actioned, and a human can do this. This is essentially where the third stage of autonomy comes in place. But essentially at this stage, we're expecting that all of these AI agents and AI that's applied over the top of our working day to day is essentially still merged as part of a ongoing team. So eventually we expect to see that real teams will be comprised of both human employees and AI agent employees. So this is where we bring us to that intelligent workplace stage. But how can we help you? So Valto can help each of these individual stages. If you're in the data depression stage, book a 1-hour free call with us. If you're watching this recorded on YouTube, there's a link in the description below to book your free 1-hour consultation. We can give you ballpark costs and estimations for each one of these different phases, which is tailored to your specific scenarios. And there's no obligation, so have a free chat with us. If you want to take this away and implement it yourself, that's totally fine. Or, as I say, we're there to help you through each of these stages. At the cloud adoption stage, we recommend having a SharePoint and Microsoft Teams workshop where we run through how you're currently managing your documents, where are they stored, and can they be structured better. We also look at security hardening. How secure is your Microsoft 365? What could AI potentially find as a fault in your security setup currently? At the process automation stage, we look at delivering Power Platform workshops where we can look at what potentially could be automated, what applications are going to benefit you and save time and ensure that you have quality data which is captured, which you can report on using Power BI. We obviously offer a full consultancy service on this, as well as bespoke builds and training. And then finally, we have our intelligent workplace. So once you have these things in place, we offer intelligent workplace workshop alongside an overarching AI strategy workshop where we can help determine how AI can then be applied to drive further insights that help with decision making and saving time and costs.
What are the kind of main issues you see with the employee adoption when it comes to AI, Hugh?
So the 2 things that stand out with employee adoption. The first one is getting people to actually use the products. Copilot is an expensive license, so if you're just paying for that and they're not using it, or they're just using it in a very basic way, then you're basically wasting money. You've not got any return on investment. So around that, it's really important to try and help employees understand the real benefit of Copilot. So that in there, we can basically give them use cases, we can train them up on the ways of working that they're doing right now, and then move into new ways of working. So what we find of a really effective way of doing that is to develop personas for the company and the employee, and that really kind of shows how they can use and replace some of the features and ways of working they have right now using tools like Copilot.
Brilliant. One of the things that I've thought of when it comes to these AI installations is it's going to bring a new structure of the way that we work, and there's going to be skills, real human skills that people are going to have to develop in order to use AI better. So if we're going to give AI to every employee eventually, that basically means that individuals that are not used to maybe managing human staff, almost like people that would be reporting to them, are suddenly going to need some additional skills for actually delegating tasks, following up with tasks, and managing AI agents. So all these things are going to play a part in upskilling our staff to make sure that they can actually use AI effectively. There's also the whole challenge of making sure that the sort of data is kept clean and up to date, because AI is only going to be as good as the data that you have. Have you got any advice, Hugh, for people that are thinking about rolling out AI, about what areas of their documents and things they should be thinking about?
Yeah, lots of organizations are still using file structures to store their information, whether they're using SharePoint or OneDrive, but they're very basic folder-driven structures that aren't great for helping find information. So one of the foundational blocks for rolling out and utilizing AI is having good knowledge bases in place. So for example, building an intranet with SharePoint is a foundational block that allows us to put policies and structured documents in an easy location that a chatbot agent can then find. And similarly, we can also build a knowledge base, which is all the knowledge of your company, and that can then be leveraged by tools like Copilot moving forward.
Brilliant. So exactly as Hugh was saying there, we need to make sure we've got a single source of truth. So now I'm actually going to show you a real-world example of how you can build your very first chatbot using SharePoint agents.
How to create a chatbot in 10 minutes with SharePoint. Now, I'm going to be showing you exactly how you can go and create your first chatbot using documents that live inside of SharePoint. So this is perfect if you have a SharePoint which is like a knowledge base of some description, a single source of truth, like a policy management system is what we're going to be looking at in this particular example, and then building a chatbot very quickly from those particular policy documents, which then employees can ask any questions that they have and get them answered very quickly, which is going to save loads of time from, for example, your HR department having to answer frequently asked questions. But first, what is a chatbot agent? So a chatbot agent is a software application that simulates human conversation. So having that chat that goes backwards and forwards between the end user and the chatbot interface. They are designed to interact with users via text or voice interfaces. Now, SharePoint agents for now are just going to be text, but I can't imagine that it'll be too long before voice interactions are also included. Chatbot agents in general can provide information, answer questions, and assist with tasks. So why would we want to use an agent? So agents can automate repetitive tasks, saving time and resources from people actually having to do things like answering questions and things like that. They can also provide 24/7 availability for user assistance. So say, for example, if your workforce actually operates 24/7, maybe they're in, say, manufacturing, operating machinery, maybe they are out in sort of the field, out and about, wherever it is, rather than actually having office staff, back office staff available 24/7 to be able to answer these questions, potentially you could have an agent which can actually do this. So using agents can enhance user experience by providing immediate responses. Agents can integrate into existing teams, saving a lot of time and effort and energy through repetitive tasks. Now, what we're talking about here is SharePoint agents, but there's actually 3 different levels of agents that Microsoft AI can provide. And they're almost in sort of category order, so in terms of order of complexity. So first we have SharePoint agents. So this is designed to enhance collaboration within SharePoint. So documents that you currently have in SharePoint, but very soon it's also going to be able to reason over the pages of SharePoint as well. It's very simple, and we're going to see that in this, how we actually go about building out the interface. Very, very simple, and it aligns with all the SharePoint compliance. So SharePoint agents actually come with a Copilot license. So if you already have a Copilot license, you can already create these SharePoint agents. Then we have a Copilot Studio, Now, this is almost like a step up from this. It's a bit more of a kind of more into the realms of actually building something using a bit more logic. Now, it's not in the full kind of developer world. We're still referring to this as a low-code creation when you're creating this, but it can be applied to any channel. So it's not just being published in SharePoint. It could be in Teams. It could be on your public website. Copilot Studio agents are kind of slightly more complex what they can do. They can even do things like they're kicking off workflows. So say, for example, a user types into their computer that they're looking to get a new laptop or a new mobile phone, some sort of new hardware from their employer. Maybe Copilot Studio then can go off and check what they're entitled to, and even then process the order if they're allowed, which then sends it off and maybe creates a task in the background for an employee to actually deploy the laptop and ship it out to them and things like that, which then results in a happy customer, or in this case, a happy employee. But you see what I mean? We can trigger these workflows. Now, all the data is based in Microsoft, so it is a software as a service platform. It's accessed directly through a web browser, and it fits all the Microsoft 365 standards of security, compliance, and governance. Then the third layer is what we call Azure AI Foundry agents. Now, these are a little bit more complex. Again, so this is more into the full developer world where you can deploy robust enterprise-grade AIs. So these are fully configurable to enterprise needs, and they go a lot further than kind of what we talked about before. We can basically automate processes across all sorts of different applications and services. And of course, again, this complies with all the Azure security requirements, ensuring that you have a secure and safe agent solution. So let's get talking about SharePoint agents. So as I said before, SharePoint agents are included in your Copilot license. So you can start building out these directly after this, following the step-by-steps I'm about to show you, if you have a Copilot license. Of course, if you need a Copilot license, you can also contact us. There's a link in the description below, and we can talk to you about getting your hands on a Copilot license. So in terms of examples, SharePoint agents is about helping with document management. So document management agents help users organize and retrieve files efficiently. So you can use SharePoint agents to actually go and find documents and then ask questions about them. It supports the collaboration. So collaboration agents facilitate team communication and project updates. So if you're wanting to get a quick summary of where a project's up to based on the documents that are stored in SharePoint, you can quickly and easily do this. And again, you can use these agents for search to enhance the ability to find relevant information quickly. Importantly, though, all of this is underpinned by your documents must be almost a single source of truth, it's your knowledge base. It's basically where all of the information is factual, kept up to date, because essentially all of these AI agents are only going to be as good as the documents that you keep up to date. So I'm going to show you a real-world example of how we can create a policies agent using SharePoint agents. So let's start off by looking at this demo area we have here. Now, this is our policies system. So this is where we store our policies. Now, essentially, this is all just driven by a single document library in the background of a SharePoint site called policies. Now, this is basically where we have all of our policy documents stored. We can see the individual policy name, the version number, which is tracked with both major and minor versions, when it was last modified, who it was last modified by, the approval status, whether it's draft, pending, or approved. We can track the review and the approver. So basically, our documents make sure that they're stayed up to date. We go in, so the reviewer would go in this case it would be Lindsay. She would update the document and then submit it for approval by clicking on the button across up here and basically selecting the three dots and then selecting on send for approval, submit for approval. We also have shortcuts where we can add buttons across the top, but essentially once it's been submitted for approval, it would then go to the approver to be approved. Often this takes place inside of the approval system built into Microsoft Teams, and then we update the approval date. So we know that this policy then is up to date and when it was last updated within here. We then got the next review date. So then what will automatically happen is when we hit that review date, it'll automatically then go back to the reviewer and say, hey, this document needs to be updated, and then it follows this cycle round and round forevermore, essentially making sure that this document stays up to date. We also have an additional add-on, which is our policy tracker. So we're tagging who do we want to make sure has basically confirmed that they've read all of these documents, and then we have a policy tracker list, which basically keeps track of exactly who has confirmed that they read individual policies that we've sent out. So we're very confident that this policy system, obviously this is just our test environment, but we're very confident that with this system in place, all of our documents stay up to date, which is vital for when we're applying our agents over the top of this to make sure that our employees are getting the most relevant, up-to-date, correct information. Now, it's really simple to create a new policy agent. All we need to do is select all of the policies, or we can just select a handful if we wanted to. So once we've selected them, you'll notice a button appears across the top called Create an Agent. So we click on that. And basically, once we've got this selected, we would then say we're going to click on the edit button across the bottom right hand corner. And then where we've got the name, we give it a name. So maybe we call this our policy agent. So this is basically what's going to appear to users when they use this. We can change the logo if we wanted to. So if you did have a particular logo that you wanted to use in this case, we could use that if we wanted to. The purpose. So this is basically going to give a brief description of the agent's objective. So in here, obviously I'd want to put something like, this agent will answer any questions related to Valto policies. Now, you can see across the bottom, we can also break this out into advanced customization in Copilot Studio. So at any time, you can upgrade your SharePoint agents into Copilot Studio agents. So if you needed to basically elevate the functionality, so this, as I say, is the most basic entry level. The SharePoint agents is very basic. If you need it to do more, like triggering workflows and things like that, you can always upgrade it into a Copilot Studio agent at any point in time. Now, we can just click Save and Close, but there are a couple of other tabs as well. We can see the sources. Now, it is complaining a little bit here because I've selected more than 20. At the moment, the early stages of SharePoint agents, you can only have up to 20 documents, which actually, for most scenarios, is more than enough. And don't forget, you could also merge some documents together. So in reality, obviously, these are just tests. We probably don't need necessarily 29 policy documents. We would probably merge these down and have a lot less for employees to actually consume. But you can see here all the sources. These are all the different documents that it is then going to be pulling from. We can then say the behavior. So what's the welcome message? So help users to understand how to best use this agent. So welcome, ask a question, or get started with these prompts. So we can say ask a question about Valto policies. And then we've got starter prompts. So it might be that you know the types of questions which are frequently asked to, say, the HR department about policies. So it might be, say, for example, how many holidays do I get a year? Maybe it's something like, what day of the month do we get paid? What is our policy on working from home? So you can see now this has updated all of the kind of prompts on the right hand side. So it gives us a good understanding as a user the types of things we could possibly ask. You can then give agent instructions. So define the agent's role, tone, and limitations. Be specific about what responses you'd like and give examples if needed. So provide accurate information about the content in selected files and reply in a formal tone. So I could say, take the role of a HR director. Provide accurate information about the Valto policies, content in the selected files, and reply in a formal tone. There we go. So let's now test this. We can ask it a question. So we can say, for example, how many annual leave days do I get per year? So this is going to have a little thing. It's going to scan all of the documents that we have inside of the sources of this SharePoint agent. And it's going to be a little bit slow when you're first testing this, as it's just kind of indexing all the documents and putting everything together. And it's also a little bit slower inside of this preview than it actually is once we come to use it inside of a real world. So there we go. It's now answered and said, based on the internal policies, you're entitled to 25 days of paid annual leave per year, in addition to the 8 public bank holidays. So there we go. It's found all this information, and it's given me supporting information around the flexible holiday scheme, which is telling me that I can buy and sell holidays. So it fully understands the context and the types of information that we want to get. You can also see it's referencing where it's finding this. So it's found this information in the flexible holiday policy, whereas further down, this is then referring to the employment law employee handbook. So it's pulling out information from multiple sources. It's not just going to find it from that one place. Then we can click on the save button and it'll save it into our SharePoint. Now it'll actually save the agent alongside the document, so it'll store it in the same location that the documents are inside of. And simply by clicking it, you can also open it up on the right hand side, which basically means that we can ask it questions directly alongside this. Now I can also choose to copy a link, which means I can generate a link just like I'll generate a link to share a particular file or folder from inside of SharePoint, and then I can paste this link potentially into, say, a Teams group, for example. Or if I just open another tab and then paste this link, it's just going to take me directly to the agent. Now it'll open up like I would do a file. If this was Word, it would open up in Word. But because this is an agent, it's opening up as an agent in here. So again, I can ask it more questions. So maybe something like, what is our policy on working from home? And it's then going to be generating a response based on all of the information that's inside of those sources, all those different policy documents that we selected previously before. And as I say, it is going to reason over all of them and then bring back responses that it's found that's relevant from each of the individual policy files that I have selected inside of my policy agent. So it is a little bit slow at first, but it will speed up the more that it gets used. So you can see here, it's got a bit of information about the working from home, so how our daily structure works, home workspace requirements, professional conduct, the equipment. It's got a load of really useful information about how Valto team works from home. I'll just close this off. But as I say, because this is actually stored like a file in SharePoint, everything else applies the same. We can apply permissions to it. We can delete it. We can share it. There is actually now an edit button. So if we want to go back into to be able to edit this particular agent, we can do this directly from here. So it's treated very much like a document is treated inside of a document library. As I say, SharePoint agents are fully accessible if you have a Copilot license. If you're yet to get a Copilot license, or you've got it and you're still not really sure the best way to get the return on investment from it, then you can contact us for a free Copilot assessment. This is fully funded by Microsoft, and you'll get a summary report which will give you an idea about how ready you are from a security, licensing, and optimization of your Microsoft 365 environment. It'll come with full recommendations that you can action yourself, or fixed prices of how Valto can help resolve some of these issues for you to get you ready. And we can also discuss some of the adoption packages to ensure you're getting the best value from your Copilot licenses.
So as we've seen, it's really simple to get started building out your first chatbot using SharePoint agents. But there's loads of other things that you can be doing as of today to get yourself started. Certain things that I would do, I don't know about you, Hugh, but if I was in the position of getting completely started with this, I'd be looking at finding examples of AI from my own industry, and then educating my staff internally about this. There's things that you could be doing, like playing with free tools like ChatGPT and Copilot. I know you've been playing a lot with ChatGPT recently, Hugh. What kind of things that have you done as like little proof of concepts?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is great for piloting different components before we want to get them into production and roll them out to the wider workforce in Copilot, and using things like Copilot agents or Copilot Studio. So some of the things that I like to play, which I've kind of referred to before, is creating those personas. So a persona for the company. So what's the company? Some information about who you are, the challenges of the company, the size, some of the things that you're working towards. That's really useful context for these tools to have. Then going down to the department level, so helping build a department persona of what's the department trying to achieve, what projects have they got, what tools are they using, and then finally right down to the employee level of who you are, what's your personality type, where you are currently in your career and where you're trying to get to. And those three personas are really power tools for ChatGPT and Copilot to be lit up and really give you really useful information and context when you're asking it for specific knowledge and specific things, rather than just generic answers that can come back from that.
Exactly. And in fact, actually, if we go to the next slide, we've got a little bit of it with our downloads as well. So something else that you should be doing right now is checking out the downloads, which are available as links in the description below. But exactly as Hugh said there, we've got some AI departmental examples. So actually how are different departments of organizations are using AI to benefit themselves and save themselves loads of time automating repetitive tasks. We've also got a Copilot prompt sheet, which is basically if you're using Copilot, what are some ways that you can get more from this, some example prompts, as well as the AI role card. So if you're looking at rolling out AI to your organization, obviously there's going to be different stakeholders, there's going to be different roles that are going to be needed to make sure that project is successful, and we've listed out all of those, of all the different types of stakeholders that you will need to be part of your AI journey. Something else which we should also plug as part of this is we also have another webinar which is coming up next month, which is all around supercharging human potential using Microsoft AI. So this is setting up your workforce to use the intelligent workplace. We're going to be showing real world scenarios, practical examples and role specific examples which will help you visualize how AI is going to enable your business to be more efficient. So we just want to thank you very much for joining our webinar today. And just as a reminder, we do offer a free consultation to discuss how you can get the best from AI in your business. There's a link in the description below which allows you to book in a free 1-hour consultation with an AI expert, and we look forward to hearing from you today.